Thank you, Glenn, and thank you for those very kind words. You were far too generous. And thank you to the Inner West Council for allowing me to be a part of yet another one of your fabulous projects. I used to live in the area. I've just moved over to Canada Bay Council now, hoping to come back to Inner West very soon. So thanks for having me. I must start, as always, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet tonight and acknowledge the Gadigal and Wongal peoples of the Sydney Basin and show my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Can I also extend a very warm welcome to any of our First Nations brothers or sisters who may be in the room with us here tonight. I also would like to start with an audio description of myself because we are all about inclusion and accessibility here tonight. It is up to our panellists if they do an audio description of themselves just before you start to share your thoughts with us, but I will do one. I am a woman in my mid-30s. I have fair skin, dark brown shoulder-length hair, and I am wearing a pink dress tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge some of our distinguished guests who are here with us this evening. Firstly, the Inner West Council Disability Employee Network members, members of the Sydney Disability Pride Community or Committee, and members of the Inner West Council Access and Advisory Committee. Well, we kick off tonight with a panel discussion, of course, and we are reflecting on leadership and the fact that today is International Day of People with Disability. Tonight, our panellists are 5 trailblazers. Each are formidable advocates for inclusion in their own right, who are excelling as thought leaders, role models, and agenda setters in our community. We'll start with some questions from me to spark a bit of the discussion, and I want you to all get your thinking caps on because there will be an opportunity for you to also ask questions of our panellists. But it's also a chance for us to consider a more broader question tonight, and that is, what's one change you'd like to see in our community? Feel free to share your thoughts during the Q&A here tonight or by contributing to the interactive sound activity that we have in the foyer with Sabrina. Tonight is a really relaxed night. Feel free to move around, stretch, have a chat very quietly, not during our panel discussion, of course, but meet some new friends, grab a refreshment if you need, and also please let yourself known to any of our team at the council if you need anything. After the panel, we will, of course, keep the celebration going because tonight is not just about serious conversation. It is also about connection, community, and celebrating the vibrancy of our beautiful community. And we will have some music and comedy for you all to participate in and enjoy. It's my privilege to introduce our exceptional panellists. Please bear with me. Their biographies are long. They're extensive for a reason because they are all incredible. And then we will get the conversation moving. So Timothy Hodge. Tim, I'm going to call you Tim because you were in a story of mine last week and I feel like we're friends now. So Tim is a 3-time Paralympian and swimming champion who's represented Australia on the international stage from the Paralympics to Commonwealth Games right through to the World Para Championships. Timothy has earned numerous gold, silver and bronze medals throughout his career and also at the 2024 Summer Paralympics. He actually has one of his medals here. I think it's a gold medal, isn't it?
Yes, I've actually got all 3 here, yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
We've got gold and a silver here from the Paris Paralympics.
I mean, if it was me, I'd be wearing them all the time and just show them off. But anyway, Tim's got some of them today, so if you want to go and actually hold them, go up and ask later. He might let you have a hold. Daniel McDonald. Dan is a deaf Aboriginal advocate and artist. His artwork reflects his Indigenous heritage and personal experiences with a focus on themes of identity and connection. Through his creative practice, Daniel highlights the intersections of culture and disability, advocating for visibility and empowerment in both spheres. Lara Nahkle. I have had the pleasure of hearing you twice this week sing and many times over the years. Lara is a talented musician and songwriter. She has performed across Sydney, Australia and internationally. She has a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, a Master's in Creative Music Therapy and is now a registered music therapist. Kitty Farrell. Kitty is an ambulant disabled woman with dynamic and invisible disabilities, rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, navigating these with ADHD and autism. Kitty came to disability late in life, and having seen what ableism is like from both sides of the fence, she's mad as hell about it. Kitty gets around the inner west with use of a walker. Having to quit full-time work due to her disabilities, Kitty now divides her time between online activism and volunteer work, and also being a mum of 2. And on top of all of that, Kitty has a recipe blog, Cooking in Awkward Spaces, sharing some very awesome life hacks for us, which we should all probably take some tips from. Next one, Jeremy Lowrenčev. Jeremy is a queer, deaf, multidisciplinary artist and facilitator whose work bridges the gap between artistic expression and accessibility. Since discovering his love for intersecting Auslan into theatre in 2018, Jeremy dived into creating stories through choreographed Auslan and movement, and strives to create a safe space to explore translating that into differently abled bodies in areas and spaces that have traditionally excluded these groups. Working alongside his womb companion, Bedelia, Jeremy found and gained pride of his deafness. And this freedom of expression in the arts is the cornerstone to his advocacy for more representation and access in the arts for the disabled and deaf community. And Bedelia. Bedelia is a groovy disabled actor, dancer, singer and theatre maker. She's artist in residence at Pitt Fairfield and recipient of the Bundanon Trust Artist in Residence program, supported by Accessible Arts and Mabel. Bedelia cruises day-to-day in the heart of Western Sydney, arts making with Pitt Fairfield, Dance Makers Collective, and We Are Here Dance Company. Previously mentored by Anthea Williams and currently mentored by performance and artistic director Felicity Nicol, Bedelia is working crip time with her deaf twin brother Jeremy on their multidisciplinary work Collision. Screen, stories, Australian Sign Language and dance all collide to explore the intersection of queerness, disability and deafness. Crucially, Bedelia is deconstructing her dance practice and focusing on the translation of dance into different bodies. Please, a round of applause for our incredible panellists. All right, well, look, in 2024, I'm not sure why we're even having this conversation, but we clearly need to still, because we haven't really progressed as much as we'd all hoped. But leadership. Do we need more leaders with disability, and why? Can I maybe start, Daniel, with you?
Yeah, you can. Apologies, I'm just a bit nervous. I've got all these people looking at me. Could you repeat your question?
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, I should have let you know that I was going to throw to you first. So really, we're in a day and age where we should have, come so much further than we probably have. There's been a bit of progress, but why is it so important to have disabled leaders today?
Actually, this is, the first time when I was with Auntie Yvonne Weldon, who's one of the Council of Sydney councillors, she asked me if I could get involved in leadership for the City of Sydney Council for the election. I was very nervous, but with a good mentoring, we can do this, and I could be involved in the election in the future. It was really good experience. It was really good to go through that journey, go through the election, because all of these people in the community, in the Sydney Council, had never seen a deaf person doing this, representing themselves for the election, for the mayor. My family was very, very shocked. I have a very strong voice when I stand up for leadership. I wanted to see how we could change things in the future. Unfortunately, 30 years ago, There were so many barriers. I felt as though now it's time for me to stand up, put myself forward. And so that's my story, that's my leadership story. And today I'm just going to give a visual description as well. I'm wearing a green striped shirt, and I have yellow shoes. I have brown hair, blue dark rimmed glasses. Thank you.
Lara, let's go to you first. If you don't mind, could you also give a little audio description, and could you tell us why representation means, what it means to you?
Right, so, hi everyone. I'm wearing a dress and shoes. Well, they're actually high heels and a pair of earrings. I don't know what colour my dress is because I didn't use an app to look. But anyway, so yeah, disability leadership is really important to me because for my whole life I've had to advocate. So like since I was in high school pretty much, because like when I was in primary, I had a vision support teacher, and I did in high school as well, but it was a bit less. So yeah, like the teachers there had to learn how to make documents accessible for me, and the same at uni as well. Because at uni I had to do a lot more speaking up for myself. There was a disability advisor and like no vision support teacher, like I was on my own. And then when I did my music therapy degree, that was a different story altogether because like I had placement as well, and I was actually the first completely blind person to do the music therapy course at Western Sydney. And yeah, like there were challenges, but I got through it. And yeah.
So it's all about self-advocacy and how important that is in leadership. Tim, I think you're next to Lara. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
And tell us, what does representation mean to you, and what do you think we need in terms of leadership and disability representation today?
Well, I think just in our community, we have so many great leaders with a disability that already exist. I think the unfortunate truth is that the platforms to, I guess, spread their message and spread their awareness aren't there. Speaking from a sports perspective, the Paralympic Games are a great opportunity to kind of showcase some of the sporting achievements and the leadership through sport. But it's 2 weeks, once every 4 years, and afterwards everyone kind of goes back to their own kind of routines. And so I think that I guess the biggest barrier to having more clearly observable leadership in a disability community is the platforms that are accessible to us, are provided to us. Unfortunately, the media has done some stuff to help us, but there's still a long way to go. And it's still a lot of cases of first for people, first to achieve these achievements, or first to be a specific advocate or things like that. And so we want to turn first into dozens, hundreds, and so yeah, it's a lot about having the platforms that are wide-reaching and available to all to increase awareness and to recognise those leaders that I believe are already there in our community, but deserve to be heard on a larger stage.
And sport's been traditionally where we've seen disability leaders thrive, and obviously that's very much expanded, as you pointed out just there, into other aspects beyond sport, because not everyone wants to be a Paralympian. That's right, we have to remember that. But Bedelia, I think you're next. I mean, you and Jeremy are pioneering dance movement in combination with deafness and incorporating all the different aspects of your lives. Arguably, the two of you have stepped into leadership roles. Let's go with you first, Bedelia. But what challenges have you faced stepping into a leadership role and taking on something in the arts that's completely new and innovative?
That's a great question. I guess also I'll just quickly give an audio description. I have white skin and brown hair plaited to my mid-back, and I'm wearing a black top and a kind of traditional Bosnian pattern skirt. And I have a leg brace and a splint and a limb difference. I guess with that question about the challenges, I think it's admitting to oneself that the popularised systems of creating art and the ideas of efficiency, especially in the art world where you're expected to have outcomes, I think is accepting that those models don't work for you. I think there's so much time spent resisting the natural ingenuity that exists in disabled culture and how we work, and actually seeing that as a positive thing rather than continually trying to cater to a system that doesn't work for our bodies. I'd say would be one of the biggest challenges is, attitudinal, really. Yeah.
It's very common for many of us in all aspects of our lives, isn't it? Jeremy, what about for you, challenges stepping into leadership roles?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also give a visual description. I'm white skin, short brown hair. I have glasses, hearing aids. I'm wearing a white button-up top with green stripe patterns. I'm wearing dark brown pants and grey shoes. I'm also quite tall. To answer your question, I feel like there's such a similarity between all the answers given thus far about, especially how you said, Tim, about a lot of firsts. And I feel like talking about 2024, why we still talk about it. And I think because finally some barriers are going down, so we're finally getting access, which means because we're being the first people, it makes us automatic leaders. So we haven't had these forebearers before us to follow. So no matter what field, if you're becoming an expert in it, in disabled community and deaf community, we are leaders because no one has had that opportunity before, or not many. So for me, I feel like, we don't have a choice but to be leaders and learn, and as Bedelia spoke of the ingenuity, learning how to be in that space in our way, and it's very individualized, but learning to create and how to advocate this disabled culture.
Tim, let's go back to you. I mean, being an athlete, athletes face this incredible pressure to be leaders from the moment you get into sport, I think. I don't know how you feel about that, but how can organisations, local government, communities work together to really create, a better environment for people with disability? Obviously, not just from a sport perspective, but if you want to talk firstly about sport, because we talked about this a little bit last week in the interview we did about swimming lessons and adapting spaces, particularly sporting spaces. Could you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. From a sporting perspective, the biggest barrier a lot of people with disabilities face in participating in sport is purely like costs and physical barriers. There are select services out there that will cater to people with a disability, but often they're a high-cost service, and not everyone can afford it, unfortunately. I know from speaking to other people who work in sport and in fundraising sectors that there are always numerous stories out there of kids with disabilities whose parents are having a hard time or are unable to fund their participation in sport because of the higher costs. And speaking from a Paralympic perspective, unfortunately, in terms of government funding and funding in general from all sources, we still pale in comparison to our Olympic counterparts. And so the initial barrier is, the financial aspect, but also I find that with especially private sources of support and income, there can be very pervasive stereotypes and a sort of unwillingness to listen to people with disabilities and just kind of label them straight off as, for example, I'm an amputee, so if I wanted to learn to drive a car, for example, I have to switch the pedals. They won't necessarily consider, oh, well, if he wants to drive a car without switching the pedals, why don't we help him with that? And so that's an example that I've personally faced, and it makes simple accessibility requirements very complex and drawn-out processes. And so I think, community-wide, the biggest barrier to a lot of issues that we're facing is an unwillingness to listen necessarily. They want to assume straight off that they know all the details and they are aware of what we can and can't do. And you'd be surprised how people with impairments can find workarounds for a lot of issues that they might have. And so it's, I guess, the tendency to make their mind up as soon as they meet you, and especially at like a government or a sponsorship level, they kind of adhere to these stereotypes and don't necessarily get to know the people individually.
I think it's really important that, you know, we've spoken a lot about the challenges and the barriers that some of us face, and I think it's really important here tonight we leave members of the council and also our municipality here with some really practical steps of what, you know, everyone can do to make our areas more accessible and less ableist for us all. I will come to each of the panellists for maybe one recommendation that the council, you know, could even potentially do to make spaces, whether it's venues or whatever it is, more accessible. I'll go first. Footpaths. Let's upgrade all our footpaths. It's really simple. Not simple to do, I'm sure, and lots of money, but one of the things, it's really simple when there's a decent footpath outside your door of how you just feel more comfortable to be independent and leave the house. Even just walking to the bus stop is made so much easier when you are, for example, a blind person and you're using a cane, and just knowing that the footpath ahead is not full of potholes and bumps and tree roots that, you know, haven't been reconcreted in a decade. So that would be my one tip. Maybe Jeremy, Bedelia, one of you guys first.
Yeah, mine is, they kind of combine as visual signage, especially at crossings for me, and also clearing away low-bearing tree foliage or shop signs.
Oh, that's a great one.
Very often on them. B?
Yeah, I guess for councils, I'd really encourage, I mean, you have an advisory panel, so woo, small win. But I guess I would recommend every year redoing some sort of disability training, so you can understand the culture and you can understand what the newest languages and what the kind of, hot tips are from the disabled community. I just also want to quickly note that I have Kitty sitting to my right as well, so if you're thinking of flowing order-wise, Kitty's next to me. Yeah.
Thank you. And Kitty, can we go to you next, please?
Yes, thank you, Naz. I will do my audio description. I am a middle-aged woman with brown hair and grey streaks. I'm wearing glasses today. I've got a black singlet top on and a red and green sparkly skirt. And I've got my walker in front of me. Now, I am on the Council's Access Advisory Committee, and Naz, you are correct, it's not very, as far as we have been advised, it's not easy to change things to make them more accessible.
Yes.
But the Council, from what I've seen in the policies and in the plans that they've brought to us, they are working hard to make the Inner West a more accessible place. But the one thing that I think that they need to do is culture change. And this comes down to they... Apologies, I lost my voice over the weekend and it's still going. When it comes to disability employment, which the council is also very big on, and also moving about the Inner West as a very obviously disabled person, you know that you stick out. And so I think putting us front and centre in both employment and in the culture is a way to create culture change, to make us the norm. There we go.
Lara and Daniel, I'll come to you in a minute for your tips, but Kitty, if I can stay with you for a moment, and as someone with, without your walker, invisible disability, what are some challenges in particular that you face in getting access to what you need?
I could be here all night, but getting what I need, I mean, it's the sort of thing that comes from all levels of government. Like things like I can't work, but I also don't qualify for a disability pension because they means test it. So my partner earns too much, so I'm now without my own sense of financial security. I can't, if for some reason I needed to, I couldn't move out by myself because I'm completely dependent on him. And I think that, I can't leave home a lot, so there's not a lot of events that are online. There's not a lot of places that I can easily get to on the bus. They're too far away, or they're too, especially in the US, the venue is inaccessible because it's heritage listed. So those things, it sounds like, when you say it out loud, it sounds pretty basic, but it takes a lot of pushing to get these things.
Yeah, so is that a thing where we need to have more events that are, online or a hybrid of the two so that more people can access them?
I absolutely believe so. Personally, I think that every concert, everywhere, every event should have an online option. A paid online option. Artists deserve to be paid, but not everybody can attend. Not everybody feels comfortable attending, and that goes out towards the greater community as well, not just the disabled community.
Lara, if you could tell me, I guess, your one hot tip for council to take away tonight about what one thing that you would like to see implemented generally to make life easier and less ableist.
Okay, so one thing that I can think of from the top of my head at the moment is that more events need to have live audio description. So a lot of movies have it and shows, but the thing is, like, when people want to go and watch like theatre productions or stage shows, I don't think they have it for concerts, but like for shows like that, you have to go to a particular session if you want to have the audio description track playing in the earphones. And so for those of you who don't know what audio description is, it's basically a track where someone is like describing everything that's happening when there's no dialogue. So what all the characters are doing, their facial expressions, and it's really good for blind and vision impaired people like me. And so I just think that like all events, especially local and council run events, should have audio description.
And Daniel, your tip?
Yes, so as part of my responsibility on the panel with council, the Disability Advisory Panel, I've actually been in that role for 4 years and I'm looking forward to continuing. And so we've had a lot of discussions at our table with the Disability Access Group, and we've been discussing for a long time over, it's still ongoing for many years, and there are barriers that persist that haven't changed yet for over 40 years. To be honest with you all, I find that the federal government hasn't been paying for disability access for council. I feel as though that is true because at our table discussions, and with our federal members in Parliament, they don't have a table discussion. They make decisions on their own. And they make decisions on the behalf of us. Organisations like the NDIS and different organisations, they don't have a genuine conversation and discussion with us. I was born deaf and I've lived deaf my whole life. People in the disability community, we all have intuition. We have a shared understanding in terms of barriers and navigating the world. Ableist people can't see, can't access that. We need to be vocal, we need to fight for change. It's not done yet. The time is now for all of us to listen and to stand up and to speak to council and to the mayor. It's a very difficult journey. We have given a lot of statements, and they've been read and crumpled up and thrown over people's shoulders, dismissed. Together, we can become successful. We need to fight for change. That's all.
Now, I haven't stuck to time. We need to have a very short break. Please feel free to stretch, grab a quick refreshment, and we will come back in a couple of minutes for the audience questions. Can I also ask our runners to get our microphones ready and to prepare to take them out into the audience? If you do have a question, please make yourself known. We'll give you just a couple of minutes. Okay, we have Eddie, who is going to be a runner for us and take our microphone around so we can have some questions from the floor. Could I ask for a bit of hush? Thank you. All right, does anybody have a question for anyone on our panel, please? Just make yourself known and Eddie will come over with a microphone, and please make sure you say your name, introduce yourself to us.
Hi Naz, it's Abby, who you met before.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, who inspired you to become a journalist?
Oh, that's a great question. So the question was, who inspired me to be a journalist? Look, I think there were a few people. There were lots of different correspondents, in particular at the ABC, people like Sally Sarah, who at the time was working in Afghanistan. And I also used to watch Jana Wendt on 60 Minutes and always loved her voice as well. So a couple of those people, but in particular female journalists, I think really stood out for me. Do we have any other questions for our panellists? Otherwise, I have one more that I'd like to ask, but I'll let the floor ask some first. Oh, all right. Well, I have a few more. Kitty, as someone who now has, a recipe blog, what would you say to young disabled people now about becoming a leader?
Okay. I think you are going to come across people who are going to tell you that you are asking too much, and you are going to feel like it's not the place for you, but it absolutely is, obviously. I mean, look at this panel here. But don't be afraid to ask for too much, because we all have our access needs and we all deserve to be in the space even with those access needs, even if people find them, a bit overwhelming.
I think that's really incredible advice, and I think as someone who, I only a few years ago started to feel comfortable about really being honest about my access requirements, and I think it's really important for a couple of reasons, isn't it? It's about being honest and making sure you get what you want, but knowing that when you get your access requirements met, you can actually be your best self and, work to your full capacity, whatever that looks like to you, and to just be comfortable with with who you are and what you need, isn't it? But it does take time. Tim, let's go to you. What would you say to disabled young people?
I guess I would have to say that there's really a lot of options out there, but there will always be some initial difficulties to accessing options, whether it's sport, whether it's studies, whether it's any kind of career paths that they want to take. But my message would be that these difficulties are temporary, and if anything, they build character. For me, a lot of my experiences have come through, I guess, a desire to not be left behind. Learning to swim in an able-bodied swim class and participating in able-bodied squads and sports and that, it can be very easy to say, oh, I don't need to hold myself to the same standard that an able-bodied kid might need to. But for me, I like to turn it on its head and say, well, if they can do that, I can do that, if not better. And it really drove me to push to be the best I can be, and to not let any kind of preconceived standard limit what I can do. So I guess my message would be to all the younger people out there to not limit yourself to what you necessarily think or others necessarily think you can do, to challenge every perceived limit, every perceived ability, and to not hold yourself back. And like I said before, there's always someone who's going to be the first at something. So if you want to be the first at your career path, or to be the first at your sport or anything like that, there's no reason you can't be. It's just a matter of determination and not letting anyone tell you differently.
That's great advice. We do have a question from the audience. Oh, let's get you a mic. Hang on.
Hello? Oh, there we go.
There we go.
This is a question to Bedelia and Jeremy. As artists with disability, you participate in a lot of creative programs. Can you talk about any disability-led programs that inspired you? I know we all hate the word inspired, but inspired you, or, I don't know, uplifted you or amplified your arts practice?
I'm a bit confused by the question, sorry.
Disability-led art programs, or, I don't know, plays, exhibitions, anything like that you've seen or you've participated in, that you want to speak to, that's inspiring or great?
I guess if people want to support, the disabled art community, I hope I'm interpreting this question correctly. Where can people go? What companies? And who have you been involved with? Is that the question?
Right. Okay, I'm with you.
I hope that's the question.
So definitely growing up in Western Sydney, I think impacted the channels. I know Bedelia and I definitely have a lot to thank to places like PYT Fairfield, who were very open with giving Bedelia a residency there first, and then supporting us when applying for larger grants through Create New South Wales. And youth theatre programs like that are fantastic because they, for example, would auspice. So if you're maybe not so money expertise, or taxing is always scary as an artist. So those were fantastic programs. And definitely for me, I benefited off things like creatability internship, where I got to be producer's attachment and showrunner attachment for Jungle Entertainment and work on shows with Netflix. And so I think the channels to look through, if you're in disabled aspiring artists would be definitely through accessible arts or youth programs, and seeing what partnerships they have through there. And B, you keep talking.
Yeah, I would definitely extend on that. Accessible arts, if you're artists of any age, I guess I'd use the term if you're young disabled, so if you're also new to identifying as disabled, accessible arts is a great space for that. I would as well, flowing to Jeremy's point, I think as well, finding in your own community and intersecting with that space. I know definitely for me, actually, they were the most important foundations for my arts practice, was embedding my cripness in Western Sydney, because I actually was intersecting with, I guess, my suburb, my space, the cultures and communities I knew. So I think as well, if you are disabled, don't be afraid to enter the spaces that you already exist in. I think there's sometimes a sparsity mindset, and that we have to travel long distances, which is a reality actually for a lot of events. But yeah, I would say looking for programs, they could be right under your nose. Yes, I'd say that.
We are rapidly running out of time, but I do want to throw very quickly to close out, because we just need to hear again from Lara and Daniel. Lara, very quickly, what would you say to your, I guess, younger self or young disabled people about getting into leadership roles?
So I would say that you just need to know from a young age, like, how to speak up for yourself. And I know it's like an easy thing to say and a hard thing to actually put into practice. It's definitely something I had to learn to feel comfortable with over the years. I mean, I was born completely blind, so yeah, like, I guess it has kind of been, well, like, I had to do it from when I was really little, but like, not to the same extent. And basically, I just had to prove myself constantly to people who always said, oh, no, Lara, you can't do this because you're blind. Oh, Lara, you need to think about, doing a different career instead, or like, yeah. So I just had to kind of learn to ignore those comments from people, because it wasn't getting me anywhere. And yeah, I guess I would just say, like, believe in yourself and don't listen to anyone who tells you that you can't do something.
And Daniel, last word goes to you, my friend.
Young children with disability. I'll be honest with all of you. Back in the day, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have TVs, our TVs didn't have captions when they did. When I was at home, I started painting. With new technology arriving, I've noticed a huge change. And often I say to children, be careful. What I do is, I've noticed Facebook has set up little videos. And so what I'm trying to do is use that to open up my art practice. Film myself, presenting my work, sharing my stories. And so I'm hoping that, with Instagram as well, people will see these videos, and then other people who have mobile phones will be able to see. It's very different in the past. Now there's so much more visibility. In the past there were so many barriers, but now we can see people doing things. We can see people achieving through these videos and through all their art practices. We can see people showing who they are. And I think that that's awesome. I think that's an amazing thing. And I think it's something that we can establish for people in the future to know that, the future is going to be better than the past. I try to tell young children, I try to convince them, pursue your goals. see people like these on the stage winning medals, performing in their theatre, doing music therapy. I think sharing these things through social media is wonderful and amazing. So I often say to children, you know, open your eyes, learn. Look up to people and imagine yourself in the future. You'll understand how to connect with your potential, with equality. That's what I do when I'm teaching Indigenous children. I often say, you need to dream. You can say, I want to be an artist, I want to be a teacher, and I say, you can do it. And I often connect them with each other and share their dreams and their passion, their hobbies. It's way better than doing your homework.
No better way to end. Please thank our incredible panellists, Jeremy, Bedelia, Kitty, Tim, Lara and Daniel.